Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go over one of my most asked questions, which is how do I get that really dark, deep black color in my Eco Resin? This can be challenging for a variety of reasons. The biggest challenge I see people facing is knowing how much pigment to add and making sure that it doesn't affect the curing time. So I'm going to cover my insider secret of how I create my black. The material that I'm using in this video is Aqua Resin, but this should still be applicable to Jesmonite and other Eco Resin brands out there. Okay, to start, I'm going to measure out the powder component of Aqua Resin, and keeping in mind that I'm going to make a large batch here because I want to prove to you that it is possible on a larger scale as well. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out 1650 grams of powder here, which will be enough for 500 grams of a liquid. My preference when I'm using Aqua Resin is to do 3.3 times as much powder to liquid. Now this might be higher than the recommended amount for Aqua Resin. This is just my preference, so keep it in mind that I might be using a different ratio than you are. And that's totally okay. You can kind of play around with how much pigment I'm adding versus how much you want to add, and that's totally fine. This is just kind of meant to give you a little bit of a base idea of how I create mine, and then you can kind of tweak it accordingly. Okay, now that I have my powder measured out, I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to add in mica powder to the powder. So I'm doing this because you don't want to just add the Jesmonite pigment in there because then you'll have to add quite a bit to really achieve that black. And then your item might not fully cure because it has too much liquid in it. So my secret here is that I add in mica powder, and this is a black mica powder. You can really use any brand here, but I'll link it in the show notes below. For this amount of material, I'm adding 15 really heaping scoops. It's almost like, I would say this is roughly about 30 1/8 teaspoon scoops. This is roughly a little bit less than 0.5% mica powder to the overall Aqua Resin powder. You could probably go up even higher. You could probably go up to even 1%. But you can play around with it. You know, this isn't supposed to be like exactly perfect, but this should help give you an idea. So what I'm doing here is I'm thoroughly mixing in the mica powder. This will really help it mix together smoothly when you're mixing it with the liquid. Okay, so next we're going to move on to measuring out the liquid, and I need 500 grams of the liquid Aqua Resin material. At this point, I still haven't added in the Jesmonite pigment, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to mix the plain liquid and this powder together. And I always add in a little bit at a time, and I use this mixing blade. I will link this down below. I really like this mixing blade and my mixing cups because I can do a larger amount. But just make sure you're mixing very thoroughly, getting all the clumps out. I will go ahead and mix this probably for several minutes just to be super thorough and to make sure all of the clumps are incorporated. And as you can tell, this is more of a gray color. Next, we need to add in the Jesmonite pigment, but unfortunately when I was recording this, I did not record me pouring the Jesmonite pigment in. So I just want to let you know, I use probably about 10% of the pigment to the amount of liquid that I used. Jesmonite says you can go up to 20% technically and still be okay. I don't like to use that much, just I don't think it's necessary. And also I kind of like adding in mica powder and Jesmonite pigments to kind of balance out the powder to liquid ratio, and I find it to really work well. All right, now that everything is mixed, it should look pretty close to black. It should look something like this. Once it's all mixed, I'm going to go ahead and pour it into one of the molds I have set aside. Next, I am going to go ahead and pour this into the mold, and as always, after I pour it into the mold, I always give it a good shake, give some good taps on the side to get all those air bubbles out. And then because it is summer and I work out of my garage, it's typically a lot warmer in the garage, and so curing time goes a lot quicker. I want to say this took about 30 minutes to cure, and this looks perfect so far. I'm really excited. And I'm going to go ahead and mold this. You can tell it's not like the most vibrant yet, but that's okay because we haven't done our final step yet, which is sealing the item. I always use this concrete wax sealer, and always I'll link this in the show notes below, and I go ahead with a liberal amount of this sealer. I love this sealer because it really allows the pigment to pop, and as you can tell, some of like the dusty parts really pop, and it turns completely that true black color that you're looking for. Once I'm done covering the entire product, I typically don't wait too long until I wipe it off just because I like to avoid getting those streaks in my product. And so I'm going to go ahead and rub it off, and it just gives this really nice matte shine, and it is so vibrant. And this is how I make my black. Please let me know in the comments if this was helpful, if you liked it, or if you like to use other techniques to achieve this star color. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you'd like to see next time.